I want to start by telling you a story that Mark Twain told. It's about a young man who was mesmerized with military history. He began a lifelong quest at a very young age to determine who is the world's greatest military leader. He read every book he could on the subject. He found wise experts and interviewed them, and then he died. He went to the pearly gates, and there he was greeted by Peter. Peter was filling out all the admittance forms, and right before he was finished, he said, "Now, do you have any other questions of me?" And this man thought, aha, here's my chance. I do. Can you tell me who's the world's greatest military leader? And Peter said, oh, we know all about your quest, and we have him here today. At that point, he was ushered into this huge concourse, and he saw all of these glowing individuals dressed in white. And at a table was a man. Peter pointed to him and said, that's that man right there. He's the world's greatest military leader. The man looked at him, and he was confused. He knew that man. He had been the cobbler in his little town. He had gone to his shoe repair shop several times to have shoes repaired. And he said to Peter, "You must be mistaken. That guy was a cobbler. He's no great military leader." To which Peter replied, but had he been a military leader, he would have been the world's greatest. Oliver Wendell Holmes said that most people go to their graves with their music still inside of them. What a sad quote, and what a pathetic story about unrealized potential. I want you to look at the next two numbers, 70-30. This is based on Gallup's most recent survey of American workers' engagement. And they found that 70% of all American workers are not engaged in their work. Think about that. That means 3 out of 10 are engaged. Gallup defines engagement as employees who are involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work and workplace. And Gallup found that one of the key elements of being engaged is that the person can proclaim, I get to do what I do best every day. Engaged workers are good for America. There's so many statistics I could share with you, but I'm only sharing 2 that I think are pretty profound. An engaged worker works harder than their counterparts. They do 43% more work than others. And they make the company more money. Up to 50% more money do they make for the company when they're engaged. Further research has found that engaged workers are the ones that come up with the new ideas. They get the work done. They're the movers and shakers. They're the ones who create, the only ones who create engaged customers. And they're the ones who are truly making a contribution. It's no wonder that American businesses, really businesses worldwide, are fixated on how do we increase the engagement level of our people. But more important than that, further research shows that engaged workers are good for families. You're less stressed if you're engaged in your work. And that is directly ties to well-being. You're healthier. You're more joyful and more hopeful. You're more energized. You may be physically and intellectually drained because you've worked so hard, but you go home emotionally energized and charged and enthusiastic and optimistic and excited about tomorrow. When I think about this, it's a tragedy when I think of how this affects children. That means that 7 out of 10 children have parents who come home from work the opposite, stressed out, not hopeful, not excited about tomorrow, not energized, but drained. So when we think about being in a place to mentor and to help children, Don't you want them, when you envision their potential in this world, don't you want them to grow up to be one of those 3 in 10? In the 1960s, psychology was all about figuring out what was wrong with people and fixing it. But there was a forward thinker, a doctor of educational psychology from the University of Nebraska, Donald O. Clifton, and he started thinking, what would happen if instead we look at what's right and good and strong with people rather than fixating on what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them. He became a leader. He's known as one of the founders of positive psychology and the father of strength psychology. He left the University of Nebraska, started a 50-year quest to study the best, the most successful in literally almost every field out there. He later, in the 80s, merged his company with the Gallup organization. Now, at that time, Gallup was only known as their polling. They are, even today, still known as the world's greatest pollsters. He knew that he could use their scientific methods of polling people to get more information about what's right with people. So, for the little teeny weeny bit of time we have together, I want you to understand a few things about strengths. First, talent and strengths. You're going to hear me talk about talent. Talent is that God-given gift, that embryo that lives within us of brilliance, but it's very much an embryo. Once we identify it and practice it and add knowledge and skills, we can turn that talent into a strength. And strength is defined as something that makes your energy soar and your performance soar. When those things are in the right spot, you're energized and you're loving life because you're contributing. You see, we all have a basic need to contribute, and it is entrenched in our strengths. That's the best way we can contribute. So the first thing I want to show you is how we're all wired differently. The problem that those 70% have when we ask, do you do what you do best? Most people don't know what they do best. Because when we talk of talent, they think, I'm not Michael Jordan. I'm not a great musician. I can't draw anything. We think of those bright talents, which are certainly talents. But what Dr. Clifton found is that there are many, many talents that you use every minute of every day, and they create your perspective. It's how you react to the world. His company, Gallup, has come out with the Strengths Finder, really the most reputable assessment to help you identify your talents. And they have to do with 2 different things: getting tasks done and working with people. How do you motivate people? How do you listen to people? How do you make people feel good? How do you influence people? How do you think about the task? How do you brainstorm? How do you set procedures? All these things. And they found that all of us have some of those talents, but unique. You have a biological DNA that is totally unique to you. You also have a talent DNA that is unique to you. So I want to show you and just illustrate how we're all wired differently, and then show you how our reactions, our behaviors are entrenched in our talents. So get ready, okay? Here's what I want to do. When I read a statement, if it sounds just like you, you can say, yes, that's me. I want you to stand up. If you say, yeah, I can do that. I do that sometimes. I want you to stay seated and raise your hand. And if it never, ever sounds like you, or very rarely, I want you to fold your arms. Now, I want you, once we all move, I want you to look at each other and take a mental note of, how everyone else is reacting. Okay, here's the first one. When I'm on an elevator, I usually start up a conversation with strangers. Okay, take note. Okay, sit down. In a minute, we'll hear what the talent was there. If we were to take a field trip right now and go to my house, we would find my clothes extremely organized. Okay. I usually have a to-do list, even on the weekends. Okay. If you asked my circle of friends which of their friends is the best listener, the one who understands them the best, they would say my name. Okay. I don't like to make quick decisions. I need time to think things over. Okay. And the final one, if you videotaped me most of the day, you'd find that I smile more than most people. Those of you who stood up, who proclaimed that I do start conversations with others, according to Gallup, they've named that talent woo, winning others over. People that have woo just naturally, instinctually love to talk to strangers, and they make them feel comfortable. Most of us, they say that's the most envied talent in the 34 that the Gallup assesses, because most of us who don't have that talent, we think they're fake, right? How can anybody do that? We can't understand it because it's not in our perspective. The one about being organized in your closets, that's discipline. People that have that talent must have order. Have you ever noticed that some children just like to organize their belongings while most don't do it at all? That's a sign of talent. Those of you who said I make to-do lists, that was the biggest group we saw. Interesting that the number one out of 12 million people on this planet that to date have taken StrengthsFinder, the number one strength is achiever. Those are people that are always focusing on the goal, that every day starts at zero, that make lists, whether in their head or on paper, and they actually most claim to getting an emotional charge by checking off things on their to-do list, and often they'll add more at the end of the day just to get that charge to check them off. The next was fixing things. That's restorative. People that have that talent are problem solvers. They get excited when there's a problem to solve. Sometimes it's about people and issues, and sometimes it's tinkering, fixing things, but it's always about problem solving. The next one about loving to speak in front of a big group, that's the gift or the talent of communication. People that have that talent often speak younger or at a younger age. They're mesmerized by the verbal word. Unfortunately, as parents and educators, we usually call them blabbermouths. We don't realize that they're just using their talent, but they love to express themselves. So they're the good joke tellers often and good storytellers. The next one was I listen. My friends, really think I understand them, Beth. That is that beautiful, glorious talent of empathy, where that person, top of the mind, wherever they are, they're worried about others' feelings. For most of us, we don't even go there, but they're focused on that. They're honed in on that. The not making quick decisions. Most of us think the kid's slow. No, he's just got the talent of deliberative. He sees a stop sign when he's faced with a choice, and he feels morally obligated to look at all the options, to assess all the risks involved before he makes a decision. And the final one was that about smiling, and that is an actual talent called positivity. There are just some people who just see the world through rose-colored glasses. They're just naturally optimistic, and research has been done. You might even try this in your own family. Look at your kids' baby pictures. Is there one kid that smiles more as a baby? That's a pretty good chance that they've got that talent of positivity. So those of you who stood up, you know that those are top of the mind. We call those your primary strengths. They're like the view that you're seeing the world through. That's how you're reacting, is through those top of the mind talents. Next, everybody can turn your head and look this way if you hear a noise and you have a need, right? But you don't live your life like that. We live our life this way. Those are those, when you raised your hand, you were saying, I can go there. I can use that talent, but it's not top of the mind. It's not, always there. And then when you did this, you were demonstrating what we call blind spots. We don't all have all talents. If you're into the scriptures say, I give you weakness. And there's a reason for that. It's so that I can serve others with the talents I have, and others can serve me with the weaknesses I have. And that makes us humble and good. So, now I want you to feel what it feels like. So, here's the challenge. You've got 3x5 cards on your desk. Everybody grab a 3x5 card. We're going to imagine that we're in a factory, and I am the factory foreman. And on today's work order, it says that every one of us on our factory floor has to write their names 3 times. In fact, we're going to only do it twice because of time. I want you to write your name twice, as beautiful as you can. In fact, let's do first, middle, and last name twice, as good as you can. Before we start, though, I want you to switch hands. Do this with your non-dominant hand. Okay, timer, are you ready? Now, when you're done, raise your hand. On your mark, get set, go. And I'm looking for quality, so I might have to yell at you. It's pretty bad. Ooh, yikes, you need some work here. Okay, those of you who are slowpoke, speed it up. We're doing this as a factory. We're worried about speed. Come on, you guys. Cheer each other on. Okay, stop the time. Most people have done it. Explain to me how wonderful that experience was. What are the adjectives you'd give to describing what that was like? Awkward. Slow. Fun. Okay, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute. There's probably a reason entrenched in talents that you're saying that. Yes. Pardon? Okay, so you did improve.
I was glad. I felt like I was achieving something when I finished.
Okay, would you like to do that the whole day on our shift, 8 hours? Would it be draining? Frustrating? Anybody felt like it was frustrating? We heard, okay. So Heidi, read back some of those adjectives about the experience.
Challenging, awkward, fun, slow, frustrating, achieving something.
Okay, the vast majority were pretty negative, right? How long did it take us? Timekeeper?
A long time.
A minute 16. Okay, raise your hand above your head. We're going to do it again, but with your dominant hand, okay? So put that pin above your head. On your marks, get set, go. We're looking for quality. How much time did we take?
32 seconds.
32 seconds. So from an efficiency point of view, we were way more efficient. What about how did it feel? When we are doing an activity that uses our talents, that's how we feel. We feel right in our own skin. We feel comfortable, confident, happy, you know? Now, we did have a couple people that were positive. They probably have that talent of positivity. So, or you may have a talent Gallup calls adaptability, where you like change, and that's always kind of a fun game. But for the masses, we want to do what feels good, where we feel like we're in our own skin. Okay, now as you work with children, it's really important for you to learn the signs of talent. And so we're going to learn the major signs of talent. The first one is yearning. It's wanting to do it. But I always say you have to try it once. And that's because when I was a little girl, Peggy Fleming had just won the gold medal. She trained in Colorado, and I lived in Colorado. And so, of course, me and every other little girl in this nation wanted to be like Peggy Fleming. So I just started hounding my parents. I gotta take figure skating. I want to be Peggy Fleming. And finally, they gave in and put me in figure skating school. I talked my next door neighbor into it. She didn't have near the yearning I did, but we went together. And then that first night, I realized I hated figure skating. I couldn't even stand up on those darn skates. But my neighbor, she could go forwards and backwards and start doing a circle the first night. The next week, I begged and begged my parents to let me drop out, but they made me stay in for the whole session. But my friend, she couldn't wait to go. Every day she was like, oh, I wish it was Wednesday. So once a child tries an activity, if they have a yearning within their soul to keep doing, that's a sign of talent. We don't want to do what we're bad at. We're naturally attracted to what we're good at. The next sign is rapid learning. There's no speed limit. You just learn it quicker than your peers. When you see that in your child, where something just seems natural to them, and they just pick up on it, as if were born with that talent, you know that that's a sign of talent. The next one is a sign of talent is satisfaction. It's energizing and rewarding. I have a little grandson. His name's Ty. He's in first grade. He's a very sober child. He's a deep thinker. He hardly ever smiles, except when he's playing soccer. I hardly recognized him the first game because I see this huge glowing smile running down the field. And I'm like, that's Ty? Ty never smiles. And Ty, the minute the games are over, he's asking his mom, when can I do this again? So that yearning and that beautiful satisfaction, it was assigned to us that soccer has something in that game that triggers one of his talents. Excellence. When we use our talents, we see glimpses of excellence. You exceed your own expectations. Have you ever had an experience where you go, I really did that? It's better than I thought I could do. And watch for that in children. When they just do something that's just glorious, you know it's embedded in talent. The next one is time stops. Have you ever been so engrossed in something that you forget to eat? Or you just don't even know 3 hours have passed? Chances are very high that what you're doing is engrossed is triggering your talents. There's continual improvement. I want to tell you really quick about something that proves some of Dr. Clifton's hypothesis. There was a study done in the 60s of speed reading schools. That was the big thing in the 60s. Evelyn Wood was the #1 program. And a bunch of educational psychologists decided to test 3 different programs and methods to see which would be the best. Well, their study totally failed because all three got the same results. But their study proved Dr. Clifton's hypothesis. In each of those groups were kids that were slow readers, 90 words a minute, all the way up to a group of the kids that were already fast readers, 300 words a minute. What they found after 3 months in either one of those three speed reading schools, the kids that were the slow readers, not slow learners, but slow readers, they improved. They could read 160 some words a minute. And a lot of people would go, wow, that's just fantastic. It was. They did improve. The kids that came into the program reading 300 were now reading close to 2,000 words a minute. And what was even more amazing is the kids that were at the lower end, they were so glad the program was over. They were so done with it. But the kids that were reading at such an amazing speed were like, when can we do this again? We love this. We want to keep going. So there's more return on your investment when you train and put resources and time in a matter of talent. You just keep growing. You just keep improving. There is a ceiling when it's a blind spot of ours or an area that we're weaker in. So this is my little grandson, Ty. For the last few minutes left, I want to talk about, okay, you become a talent scout. You start noticing these talents in the children in your life. What do you do with that? How do you help them take that embryo of talent and move towards a strength that can really help them make a contribution to this world? So I started suspecting at age 3 that Ty had the talent of competition. Now, with children, talents are raw and they're often ugly. And this is one that is the ugliest. And as parents, we usually try to force it out of our kid because they're the kids that we label poor sports because they're crying when they don't win. They're the kids that will kick over the board game when they realize they might not win. And we call them crybabies. But when competition matures, it's one of the greatest things on earth. Not very many people have it. But when they do, I dare say that this world would be totally different if God never gave that talent to anyone. It drives people towards excellence with such intensity that amazing things happen. As it matures, it becomes not about me and me winning, but about us. It's altruistic. And those people that have it in, say, a business setting, they're the drivers that can take this team and move it towards greatness. So I noticed it with Ty when he was 3, when we went berry picking. Top of his mind as a 3 years old was, Grandma, am I picking more than you? Grandma, have I picked more than Mia, my older sister? 20 times I counted in an hour and a half, he wanted to find out if he was beating us. Mia and the rest of the kids could care less. It wasn't in their perspective, but for Ty it was. One of the things about Ty is he'll work hard. Like he's in soccer, he loves it. He prepares more than any 6-year-old. He's out there practicing because he sees that his hard work can help him succeed. He loves winning, and parents have to understand that it hurts him in his soul when he loses. And he may need to sulk, and he may need to cry a little bit. And he has this intense motivation to succeed. With every strength and the possibility of contributing comes needs. If those needs are met, then that strength finds a sweet spot where it really can contribute. And this is where we as mentors, teachers, parents can help. Ty needs competitions. If a child's not athletic, then he'll still need competitions. So maybe chess clubs, speech clubs, somewhere where they can compete. He needs measurements. And if school doesn't do it, parents can do it. Like, for instance, Ty, maybe he wants to read more books. And so you say, okay, what's your goal? Sometime I can do 50 books in a month. Well, this week you did 5. Let's chart it and make a graph. He needs to see that. He needs challenges. He needs to be acknowledged as the winner. Sometimes as parents, we don't want to do that because we've got other children. But if someone has competition, they need the pat on the back. When you give them what they need, the motivation's so high, and it's just amazing what they'll do. And he needs the opportunity to lead others. Thursday night, I was babysitting while his dad was at a meeting and his mom was at Relief Society. And I forgot that the mom said, have them in their pajamas before I get home, and it's almost time. So I tell the kids, run, get your jammies on. Well, nobody's doing it. So I think, I can get Ty on my side. I say, Ty, hey, let's have a contest. Grandma's going to set her clock for 1.5 minutes. If you help your little brother and you encourage your sister, if you guys can beat that, let's see if you can beat that. But you have to take your clothes off, put them in the hamper, come and dress in your night clothes and come clap Grandma's hand. Do you know that he rallied the forces and all of them did it in 45 seconds? He's the middle kid, but he's the leader when it has to do with competition. Now, in the last few seconds left, I want to introduce you to his sister, Mia. She could care less about any competition. It doesn't motivate her at all. She's the learner. And I love this picture of her on Halloween when everybody else is getting excited about going trick-or-treating. She's in her costume, but she's with a book, which is very typical for Mia. I knew Mia was a learner because at age 2, she loved books, but she wasn't happy with just picture books. In fact, when she was only 2, her mother read her Charlotte's Web, which had very few drawings in the whole book, and she was into the story. At a very young age, she started identifying letters, and reading is her greatest joy. She read all of Harry Potter before the 2nd grade, all 7 volumes before 2nd grade. So what kind of contributions does a child like Mia make? They're inquisitive, they're curious, they're excited to learn, they love to share the knowledge. My gosh, that girl knows so much, and I'll always ask her, how did you know about those facts on the Civil War? And she'll say, Grandma, I read about it. So what kind of needs does she need from a mentor in her life? Well, she needs patient parents who'll let her ask questions and share. She needs experience for learning, field trips, trips to the library, opportunity to speak to interesting people. And Mia needs quiet time. She's a child you don't want to overprogram. She loves and relishes her quiet time to just read. So how do you motivate Mia? Her room's a terrible mess. I saw it Thursday night. If I was her mom, I would say something like, Mia, you don't want to rush Mia. I would say something like, how about on Saturday morning, you have all morning to clean your room, because Mia will stop with any written piece that she can get her hands on and take a little time to read along the way. How about you clean your room, and what would you like to do? I'll let you pick. Would you like to spend an hour at the library or an hour at a bookstore? And that will motivate Mia. She'll get it done. The point here is that once you can identify people's talents and give them what they need, you almost don't have to discipline them anymore. They're motivated, they're great, and they're excited about life. A lot like those 30% of American workers. Their life's less stressful, they're more hopeful, more joyful, they're more excited about the future. And there's so much more we could talk about. This is such a fun, fascinating subject, but hopefully it's just opened your eyes a little bit. And I hope that you'll also watch for signs in yourself. It's a wonderful way to be validated. This is why I do what I do. It's entrenched in these God-given talents. Yes, I was going to tell you, Gallup has created very world-renowned assessments. One for adults, high-functioning teenagers, I say usually juniors, seniors, on up to adults, is called Strengths Finder. You can go online and take the assessment. It costs $10 if you're a student, and you do it through their Strengths Quest, or $15 if you do it through Strengths Finder. With that, you will download, there'll be books. The Strengths Quest is a book that's all about how do I use these talents in academics and in career search. The other one, Strengths Finder, it gives you Strengths Finder 2.0, and it's more for adults on, this is what your strength is. Now, they also have a wonderful assessment called Strengths Explorer, and that's for older elementary and junior high. And with that, there's all kinds of action ideas and ideas for parents on how to help nurture those. And those are great assessments. I worked for Gallup before my husband was a mission president, and I loved it. I believe in those assessments. But, you can do a lot on your own just by understanding what talent looks like. So